Welcome in, everybody. Happy Mock Draft Monday. Happy Easter Bengal. We're recording this here Sunday night. Thanks for coming on, man. You probably don't need any explanation. Another great YouTube content creator here on this
Thank you.
growing NFL analysis platform here on YouTube. Thanks for stopping in. Excited to do a what we would do mock draft here tonight. We're just going to do one round. Gonna be a little fun back and forth. Before we do get started, though, I wanted to throw something back at you because you tweeted, just kind of collecting hot draft takes from everybody. And I'm curious what your big hot draft take is.
Yeah, it's like the easiest content I'll ever make where I just tweet out, say, hey, you give me stuff to work with, and then I'll just ramble as usual. You had an interesting one. I put it in the video, of course. Bijan Robinson, as maybe even like taking him in the top 10. You kind of threw that out there, but depending on the team and the situation, like I don't know how you could be the Eagles and say it doesn't make sense for them to do that. The team's so great, and then you're going to guarantee him for 5 years during his prime. I would love that if I were an Eagles fan. I'm not. I hate the Eagles, but I would do that if I were them. But I think my biggest hot take is something to do with Anthony Richardson. I don't think he's QB1 like we see people get floated out. But QB2 you can start to kind of sell me on a little bit more just because of the upside. Like I have questions about CJ Stroud. I really like him. He's really accurate, but he's played behind a great offensive line with the best weapons, and we don't really know, other than the Georgia game, what he can do against a better defense and under more pressure. But Anthony Richardson, I mean, that guy can create out of the construct, and I'm sure, Marcus, as you know, the construct of that Florida offense is disastrous.
Correct.
So it really was ugly to watch every RPO. It's almost as bad as the slow RPO Wake Forest offense with Jamie Newman and many others. But I think, hot take, I think Anthony Richardson starts before everyone else is saying. I think he could be a year one guy. And I think depending on what the offense is, like Chicago, Justin Fields, he could equal that level of production.
Yeah, I mean the floor with the running is super high, and we're definitely kind of in stride. I think with what you said about Stroud. I just did a my guys, not my guys draft with the stock exchange boys.
Love them.
And yeah, they're the best. And one of my not my guys was actually CJ Stroud because of where the conversation is. In that I don't think the upside's really there. So I like where you're heading with that. And we might get a little bit more Richardson talk as we get into the mock draft here. So the only other order of business before we get started would be to just bring up the Aaron Rodgers trade. We talked a little bit about this before we hit record here. We both said no on 13, and we aren't doing a second round here. So I think we both would say one of those second round picks would probably be involved there from the Jets. But for the Packers' sake, we are going to include Corey Davis in the trade, which does just kind of make sense, given that he's kind of the fourth guy and a little bit of a cap casualty kind of sitting there right now. Makes sense for the Packers, played with LaFleur in Tennessee. And so I'm going to give you the first overall pick as our guest here.
I was interested to see if you were going to go ahead and take that or not, but I don't do too many what I would do. I kind of try and predict different scenarios. So I'm actually excited to take Bryce Young here at number 1. I am a very big Bryce Young fan. I was lucky enough to go to the Texas-Alabama game. As a Texas fan, wasn't that lucky. But Bryce Young was so impressive in that game where it was clear he was getting absolutely zero help around him. I love Bryce Young. I think he's awesome. And I think, in a league where we're so protective of the quarterback nowadays, you can get away with being 195 or 200 pounds, I think. So, maybe that's a concern long-term, but Bryce Young is such a talented playmaker. I would bet on him at quarterback over anybody in this draft.
Yeah. So as someone that got to see him play in person, did he feel small live?
I'll tell you this. It wasn't really something I thought about. He definitely is is short. But I think you kind of get distracted when you see him making all these unbelievable plays, and you can point to a number of different in that one where he's buying time and hitting receivers on the money on the run, and they're not catching them all the time. There's one over the
Hmm.
middle that I remember early in the game. I want to say it was Trayshawn Holden just dropped it over the middle. I can't recall. I haven't watched that game since
Yeah.
going to it, but I mean, there were a couple in that game where it's like, how do you not catch that? He's doing everything, and just didn't happen
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah. Strangely, not the typical Bama cast there. So, you know what? I could get crazy and stand by my take of I would not take CJ Stroud here for the Texans because of some of those upside notes. I was just watching Diane Henley, and it was against USC, and I was like, holy shit, Caleb Williams is impressive.
Now he's the best. He would go number one all day in this class.
And I think if the Texans pass on Stroud and pass on a quarterback, you're probably in a pretty good position. Do they have another Browns pick next year too? Did they? Because they got three
I think they
ones.
do. I think they do. Yeah.
So the only thing is like it kind of screws up the draft here if you don't take a quarterback here.
Well, that could happen though. That's the thing.
Yeah. You know what I'm gonna do? Because I have both of the picks. I'm gonna move up with the Falcons and take
Ooh.
Anthony Richardson.
Oh, that's crazy. I like that.
Yeah. Because I do think Atlanta is one of those kind of sneaky teams that might pull the trigger. You talk about a team that could really tap into what he does as a runner in year one. I think it was Robert Mays that pointed out they ran as much 12 personnel as anybody in the league outside of Baltimore. You can get a lot of heavy packages, and just they already had this epic run game. That offensive line is so underrated right now. So I think they could really get a high floor out of him now. He doesn't have to start right away, really, because they have Ritter. But and honestly, sending Ritter to Houston here might not be the worst piece in the trade. I won't go that route, but this would be probably 3 ones.
Yeah, you're trading up for a quarterback. It would probably have to be overall. Which, whenever you would say that, I'm sure you have the same thing in the comments that I see. Is that we would never trade that much to get? But you have to. I mean, look
Yeah.
at all the trades historically for a quarterback. It is a lot. Trey Lance, Mitch Trubisky, even Justin Fields. When the Bears jumped to 10, it was a first round pick this year and the next year.
Yeah, and that was to
The
get to 10
Giants.
for the fourth
Yeah,
quarterback off the
exactly.
board.
So it's not cheap because it is factored in that they're trading it for a quarterback. It really is. I'm going to make a trade too, if you'll allow
Okay.
it. I see
Yeah.
the Indianapolis Colts sitting at 4, and I want to jump them. I being the Las Vegas Raiders, we're going to take CJ Stroud at 3. Just because we do have some talent already on the team. The offensive line's not great, but I like the idea of getting CJ Stroud, Devontae Adams. That's your Marvin Harrison Jr. From Ohio State. And I think if you're going to have him succeed, that's a good spot for it to be.
Okay. So that leaves me with the Colts at 4, and I will take Will Levis. I don't know where you're at on Levis. I kind of like him, actually. I think there's obviously some flaws with him. I think his pocket presence is very annoying at times. It reminds me a little bit of like Carson Wentz, where he's just kind of like doesn't feel the rush, doesn't know when to get out. But what he doesn't do that Wentz does is like put his head down and, get lost. Levis is at least kind of respectfully what's the word I'm looking for? He's respectfully it's not coming to me, but
I would love to bail you out here. I just
oh man, he's blind to it, but it works for him a lot of times because he's standing tall in the face of pressure, and he's standing right in there about to get hit, and will deliver these incredible throws over the middle of the field. So I think he has a good like pocket presence as far as being a thrower from the pocket. And then just the accuracy stuff is something that is going to have to get better at the next level. But yeah, I think he reads defenses better than he gets credit for. and would actually be a little bit better on the Colts than this kind of idea that he'd be a guaranteed bust. So 4 quarterbacks off the board in a row.
Yeah, I think it absolutely could happen, especially in a scenario like this, obviously. And then, man, what a decision for Seattle at 5. I think I would probably jump at the opportunity to take Will Anderson Jr. here, and I just ignore Jalen Carter. Got a couple of pieces on the interior defensive line of free agency. Anderson is just cleaner. That's what it comes down to. There are some you know things to nitpick with him, or maybe even not, but there's some concerns about play strength and size. But I really like him. The SEC production is just pretty incredible, and he did it early on. You'd like to think he can continue to get better, and yeah, big time edge.
He was a guy that every time I kept turning on Alabama, I just kept ticking him up a little bit. Like just I felt like he was such a consistent presence and has a lot more power than he gets credit for. So yeah, that'd be a lock there at 5. Um, the term I was trying to think of for Levis is respectfully oblivious.
Oblivious, yeah. I was going to
Oblivious
say
to the rush.
ignorant to the
Yeah, I
pressure.
know that's the word that kept coming to me, but his obliviousness helps him sometimes. Anyway, 6 gets really interesting
This is a
here.
tough one. There are a couple
Yeah.
of really, really good options here for you. And this could not have played out better for Detroit, I think.
Yeah, unless you were hoping Richardson would somehow be there and you get in on that hype. But it's either Witherspoon or Carter. And I am actually a little bit worried about Carter's off-field stuff. It just stuff keeps coming. Obviously, like what happened was tragic and horrible, but it was just one event. But then you see the way it impacts his pro day. And then he's like telling teams like, don't interview me if I'm not a top 10 pick. And it's just like, I don't know. I really don't like the way he's handling this process. Probably not enough to take him out of the top 10. But if I'm Detroit here at 6, I know they spent some money at corner, but I think that Witherspoon is just phenomenal. It feels like he has the opposing team's play call sometimes, the way he anticipates coverage. So plug him in as your number 1. You got Akuda and the guys they sign that can fill out a really nice secondary there. And they have some underrated pieces up front. They really do. All right. So that will leave you then with the Cardinals, who moved down with the Raiders at number 7.
Yeah, post trade. We're going to go Tyree Wilson here. Their defensive line is super depleted. And even with JJ Watt, if he did not retire, it would have been still a high priority. Tyree Wilson makes a ton of sense. Scheme versatile player too, so you like him overall. Maybe more long than athlete, but does have pretty incredible length. So yeah, maybe broke out a little bit too late coming into the Big 12. From the SEC with A&M. There are some dings as well with him, but high upside. I still think so.
So you
not
think
a bad pick.
You think he's a good enough prospect to pass on Carter's off-field stuff there, if that's the debate?
I think so. I think we're kind of in the same boat here, where Carter is an incredible player, but it's just a number of things that continue to add up.
Mm-hmm.
When do you feel safe taking him? I think we want to get him in a better situation around him, and I'm not sure that is here in Arizona. They're in a bit of a weird phase.
Yeah, for sure. And they can't afford to miss. And
yeah,
I think Wilson, even if he's just Marcus Davenport, which is my comp for him, that's not missing as long as he stays healthy, unlike Davenport. But now we have Houston, who moved down with Atlanta. And this is where you could really swing for the fences with Carter. You get that 3 tech in D'Amico Ryan's system. With Tyree Wilson off the board, I think, gosh, they're a team that's rebuilding as well, but.
And you probably just got a ton of picks from that trade down.
Right. I think I'm going to swing for Jalen Carter. And that, gosh, I mean, how can you even really, if he hits, how do you even argue that with the Texans, where you're getting, maybe the best player in this draft, assuming you can, and D'Amico would be a great guy to kind of like oversee him and be like, dude, you got to get this thing together because you could be a Hall of Fame talent with me. Like, I think that'd be a good fit. And then you're potentially looking at, one of those top 2 quarterbacks next year. I think that's kind of hard to argue with.
Yeah, I think people are probably going to be surprised that how do you keep leaving Jalen Carter on the board? But I think you really found him in a fantastic position And that leaves me with Chicago. Really just been eyeing offensive line here pretty much the entire draft season, post move down. It's what do you want here? Is it Skoronski because he's probably the best offensive lineman in the class, or is it somebody like Paris Johnson Jr. because he's maybe the best pure offensive tackle in the draft, at least when it comes to the size profile, which is important to these teams, we know. But this is what I would do, and I would probably look to play the best five. So I'm going to go Peter Skoronski here at 9.
Okay. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I really really like Paris Johnson. He reminds me a lot of Andrew Thomas coming out of Georgia, but Skoronski a higher floor, and you got to make sure Fields has everything he needs. So, and he can, like you said, he can
It was
slide
a
in
tough
anywhere.
call. I
Yeah.
could be sold either way.
All right.
I'm interested to
So,
see what you do here with Philly. Because this is what you would do. This is not predictive. It's not what
yeah,
Howie Roseman would do. What would
right,
you do at 10?
man. I will say, as much as I talk about Bijan, I think getting one of these corners would still be an awesome pick. I also would like Paris Johnson for them with him falling there. The upside, he could play right guard like he did his freshman year, and then kick out to tackle whenever Lane Johnson decides he's done. I still actually view right guard as kind of a need for Philly
Oh, for sure.
because I don't think that they want Jurgens to be that guy this year. I really don't. I think he's the Kelsey replacement. I really like Paris. This is, I think, what I would do and probably what they would do, honestly, just with the way that they build. Let's not risk the pipeline at offensive line running dry.
Yeah, that bothers me for Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because that was probably going to be my pick if he made it to 11. I do still like the offensive line talent down the board, if we want to call it that. Like, I'm a big Broderick Jones guy. I don't really know where his hype went. I feel like you have a really young, strong offensive lineman who has held up pretty well in the SEC at Georgia. Doesn't have a ton of experience, but has looked good. I'm not saying, take him top 10 necessarily or top 5, but I think in this range, it makes a ton of sense. So I've had that penciled in for a while now. I hate to just continue to do what I've been doing.
I always go Lucas Van Ness for them.
Interesting.
Bud Dupree's gone.
That's
Danico
true.
Autry's 32 years old.
I feel like he'd be a better Autry replacement if you bulk up a little bit than purely off the edge. He was really, really fun to watch. He's probably one of my favorite players in this draft. It was just a shame, where's Lucas Van Ness on the field? He's not. Okay. I'm going to go. I just think their offensive line is so poor. I mean, Petit Frere, maybe you got something there as a starter. Andre Dillard, I don't believe in because we've seen it. I'm going to go Broderick Jones.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Could see that. Okay, so Houston's back up. I think I'm just going to stick with defense and just make defense like the theme for this year with D'Amico. And screw it. Let's take Lucas Van Ness. Let's put him next to Jalen Carter and really fill out that D line. A couple of guys that have just immense upside. You have a guy like Lucas Van Ness is going to be that pocket pusher. They're going to run about as many stunts as anybody with D'Amico Ryans coming in. And whether he's the occupy guy from 3-tech or he's going to crash in from like a wide 9, I think he can do both of those things. You got a looper and Jalen Carter.
Yeah, you talk about the wide 9. Getting Lucas Van Ness on a runway is dangerous for any offensive tackle. Man, I've really made this tough for myself with the Jets because I want to go offensive line again. And the top couple are off the board. It just kind of depends. I know like DJ is quite high on Darnell Wright, had a great offseason so far as well. Anton Harrison, someone that I've seen get a ton of hype, and I'm not an offensive line expert by any means, clearly, but those are two guys that are fun to watch. Darnell Wright plugs in perfectly at right tackle, but has played left tackle before. Anton Harrison, more of your pure left tackle. They just have so many question marks on the offensive line. We don't know about Mekhi Becton, unfortunately. Max Mitchell, maybe he got something, but I am going to go offensive line.
I did see that Darnell Wright struggled quite a bit at left. A couple people I've heard now say that he's got to be a right.
He just doesn't move quite well enough.
And
And
I
we've seen
get
him
it.
be so dominant at right tackle.
Yeah,
Like, he
I mean
shut down
back
Will Anderson.
yeah. Back when I played, I could not play left. I had to play on the right. So like I kind of get where some guys just aren't comfortable on that side.
I was a slot receiver. I have no idea about
You could go
blocking at
anywhere.
all. I'm gonna go Darnell right here. That's gonna be our plug and play right tackle. If Aaron Rodgers is gonna be the quarterback, got to get him some protection, and don't want to waste the potential final years of his career. How do you feel about that? By the way, we haven't talked about that whole situation. Are you big on Jordan Love? He looked really impressive in his limited playing time.
Yeah, I mean, everyone listening here will stand by me and say I was a Love guy before he was ever a Packer. I mean, he was my
Same.
QB2 that year. I definitely thought he needed time, and he's gotten that time. I think his mechanics and just his confidence, the difference between the start that everybody likes to look to in Arrowhead on a random short week, with a horrible offensive line, he looked shook and like not ready. But he came in a meaningful game against Philadelphia on the road against, the team that went on to win the NFC, and he carved them up. Obviously, they have a lot of confidence in him too because they're moving off of Aaron Rodgers for him. So, yeah, I'm honestly extremely excited to see how this works out, and pretty optimistic about it.
Yeah, people are really quick to move off quarterback. I mean, if you see Aaron Rodgers in his first couple of preseason games, he looked terrible. But how are we going to judge a preseason series for what a guy could end up being? I was one of the few guys as well that really did not like or did not dislike the Jordan Love pick the way everyone else seemed to, because you can see the vision because we've seen it before. I mean,
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers from Brett Favre, it's tough to make that comparison, but yeah, I think Jordan Love could be awesome.
Yeah.
And
I
I've
mean,
made this, I feel like, pretty easy for you with the Patriots here.
yeah. But where they went wrong with the Love pick was taking AJ Dillon and Josiah DeGuara in the second and third
I
round.
didn't like those picks.
Yeah.
DeGuara especially. I watched him and I didn't really see a player that was that draftable. I hate to say. I didn't understand the tight ends that went early. Like Devin Asiasi was that year as well to the Patriots. Dalton Keene. I didn't get what was happening with the tight ends off the board.
I agree.
But it's easy to say that in hindsight, but had those opinions at the time too.
Yeah,
So
it's why we do what we do.
well-founded.
Sometimes we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I called Dalton Keene a bad pick. Let's go. But was
So this
big
is-
on, I don't know, probably a number of terrible players.
This is interesting. It's cool to see kind of how honestly, like the Texans trade down is shaking a lot of this up. But yeah, I think you probably go Christian Gonzalez, even though I'm neck and neck with him and Deonte Banks.
Both very good athletes.
Yep.
I think Gonzalez is a little bit smoother, is why I would prefer him.
Yep. And a little bit more calm playmaking instincts, I would say. When the ball's in the air, I think he
his
moves
ball skills really came along in 2022.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to take Gonzalez, and maybe the least technically sound of the top four guys, but I think Belichick will look at that and say there's not a whole lot to clean up, and especially with the 4 tackles gone.
Yeah, Green Bay is an interesting spot. Your team,
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what you would do here. After I make my pick, I'd love for you to tell me, oh man, I really wish you would have gone with that play. I'll tell you who I'm really staring at here is Brian Branch, who I've done before, and it was not well received, but I just think, you get a DB that can play all over, and their secondary, I think, could use a little bit of work. I don't think I'm going to do that, though. Just somebody that stood out. I think I'm going to go tight end here. I got to go with a playmaker. That group is just not good. Actually, I'm going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba, just kind of sitting there. I know I bounced around a little bit.
Yep.
But I think he actually complements the Packers receivers well. I think Romeo Doubs can play on the outside. We know what Christian Watson is. One of the most dynamic deep threats in the NFL are trending that way. You don't really have a bona fide slot, and I think if you want someone to make Jordan Love's transition into being a starting quarterback as easy as possible, get Mr. Reliable, which would be when he's on the field, Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't think he was as injured as he let on in 2022. I think he was trying to not risk re-injury, and he just decided to basically sit out. So I would say I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is about as reliable as they come, even knowing what his record was in 2022 with playing like 2 or 3 games, kind of.
Yeah, that's what I would hope they would do, and know that they wouldn't, which is what's so frustrating about the Packers. Although
Javon Walker, last first-round receiver, 2002.
It's just ridiculous. But I totally agree. He, especially after getting Corey Davis in the trade, they don't have that slot piece. And if they do ever go outside of their like archetypes, it's slot players. And I love the point about like he would be such a easy, quick separator for Love, just to kind of make him more comfortable. And yeah, that if he's there, that's who I would really hope. And if they didn't get Corey Davis, I'd be fine with Quentin Johnston as well. But I think those guys would be kind of competing along with Dobbs. So I like the pick. Washington up. I'm going to take Deonte Banks.
Done that many times this year. It makes too much sense.
Keeping him close to home. I don't know about you. I thought Deonte Banks had like some of the best zone stuff that I've seen in years from a corner. Just the way he communicated stuff. And that's what really impressed me, because he's a really good man guy. But they ran every coverage in the book, like cover 2, cover 4, cover 3. And he was just like, he knew exactly where he belonged, was snapping on to guys, to the point where he was like telling the safety, like, hey, I got this guy, you pick him up, like helping other people's coverage as well. So maybe that was that extra 4th year that kind of helped that come along. But Washington, a very quarters heavy system, and he's going to be very comfortable there. But gives him an option to, play a little more press man when they have to go against dominant receivers, because Fuller, good player, but he's not like a guy you want falling around a number 1 like Banks might be. So
you think he's the best zone corner in the draft? I have a guy that I think fits that mold pretty well, that is still on the board, actually. Manuel Forbes. Manuel Forbes' zone instincts are very good, in my opinion.
You're not taking him at 17, though.
No.
Okay, I was going to say
I'm just saying on the topic of zone corners.
Yep.
I really can't see Emmanuel Forbes in the first round as much as I like him. I just think he is unprecedented size, and he's just not going to go that high.
Mm-hmm. I do agree about the zone stuff for him, though. Fantastic.
Yeah, I am going to take a corner, though, and it's a boring pick I've made 100,000 times. You already know where it's going before I even say it, probably. I'll put it in. Julius Brents. No, Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. Son of Joey Porter. That's news to no one at this point. Yeah, I've given them either a tackle or a corner pretty much every time. If I give them a tackle, they cry about it, even though it could definitely happen. I agree. That pick. But yeah, Porter, it makes sense too.
Okay, so for Detroit,
big draft for them already, potentially.
Yep.
Depending on how you feel.
All right, Bijan's off the board.
Ooh.
We're gonna put him. Look, with all due respect to David Montgomery, I like David Montgomery, but
he was an Iowa State guy that I was really impressed with.
Was his was it just a 1-year contract for him?
No, it's like 3 years, 18, or something comparable to that.
Yep. Basically a 2-year deal. 2 years, 12 is kind of what it really is. The last year, yeah, he could play it out.
Yeah, and they have the void year. I would agree, basically 2-year deal. But yeah, I mean, you could even cut him after 1 technically if it's only going to be 6 and change in dead cap. Probably wouldn't want to do that, but you could if it came to it.
I just think with I'm not taking any of these pass rushers there. I mean, Nolan Smith would be fun. Yeah, I'm gonna do it, man. Lions fans won't like this one, but I don't really care. You put him behind that offensive line, and I think you have like a Barry Sanders level run game. Like seriously, like I think you are for the next 5 to 8 years, as long as he can stay healthy, you are going to be one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. And that to me is going to help them more than, another pass rusher here or Quentin Johnston, who's a little bit redundant with their playmakers already. It's a tough call,
Yeah,
but I'm going to
I mean,
stop.
you're not
I'm
going
going
to
to stop
find a
his
bigger
run.
Bijan fan than me, so I totally can get on board with it. It's just that I feel like it makes the David Montgomery signing a little bit weird because you're basically paying him, you know, RB1 money to be a goal line back at that point. But it's tough when the talent's there. I think the people be like, "Oh man, I can't, we have a running back. We don't need it." But you're getting a top 5 talent in the draft at 18, and you get him for his entire prime, likely. So tough to hate it. I'll tell you what I do hate though is picking for the Buccaneers this year. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Um, Offensive line continues to be a problem. Tackle has not been solved. I'm going to go Anton Harrison because I like the player and I know it's a need, and you don't have to move Tristan Wirfs. So a lot of tackles flying off the board. I don't know how I don't do that. It always happens, but there's so many tackle needy teams in the tens or even nine. Yet Bears, Philadelphia, Tennessee, Jets, Patriots could, even after investing a little bit in free agency. Packers could, Washington Commanders could, Pittsburgh could. It's crazy. But the tackle class not amazing. I think these guys could rise though.
I'm with you. All right, so pick 20. I'm gonna go. We got Anderson early. Seattle's another team that I always struggle with.
Yeah, this is I've done guard here. It feels a little bit too rich for Osiris Torrance though.
Yeah.
They don't typically draft corner in the first, but you could if you like that. Yeah, this is receiver maybe.
I'm between Quentin Johnston and actually a pick that I kind of like for them that feels kind of like a Seattle pick is Brian Brzee.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm starting to get just like a good gut feeling on Brian Brzee.
I love Brian Brzee. I really do. He has, if you're going to make excuses for every other prospect in the class, not you, obviously, but I'm saying everybody,
Yeah.
why not Brian Brzee? This is a guy who was put in such a tough position to succeed in 2022. Played through it. He is one of the best interior rush defensive linemen in the class. It's tough to find a better pass rusher on the interior than him, and that's in a class with Jalen Carter's power and the speed of Kalijah Cansey. I love Brzee. I think the fact that he's going to fall maybe to 40, it seems wild.
I'm going to go Brzee here then. And he's a guy that I would not be surprised if he's knocking it out with interviews and stuff. This guy was the number 1 recruit in his high school class. And you look at the Seahawks D line. It signed Draymond Jones. He's a 3-tech. Brzee's weird because he's listed at 300, but when I watched him play, I swore he was like 320. Just he's so wide.
He's a big dude, but he moves like he's 290.
Yeah,
and he's really also impressive. A perfect fit for their scheme in Seattle. It's tough to find. Like before, he had started to drop a little bit. Brzee was someone I frequently mocked to them inside the top 10 because I liked him so much coming into the year. And I mean, he's just a perfect fit.
All right, we're gonna do it.
Chargers then. This one I think is actually easy. There are some really nice receivers here. And you talk to a Chargers fan, the first thing they'll tell you is we need more speed at receiver. But you don't need to necessarily take it with your first pick in a draft where there's a ton of speed down the board. Maybe you can get Jalen Hyatt in the second, or Tyler Scott, or Jaden Reed. I mean, there's are so many guys down the board.
And I feel like the guy for them doesn't even have to be that good of a player. Like we've seen Guyton and Jackson.
Just need someone to stretch the field.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep. Even if you're going all the way down for like Trey Palmer or Matt Landers,
Trey Palmer can fly.
Yeah.
And they also kind of fit that height requirement. We see the Chargers draft a lot of tall and fast. I mean, maybe even Andre Iosivas in the day 3 window. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to go tight end here, though. I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid out of Utah.
All right.
You could sell me on Mayer or Kincaid. I think Kincaid's a little bit better vertically than Mayer is, who's just an awesome
Oh yeah.
safety net, I would say. But Kincaid, I just think is a better fit for this offense. I look at everything you would hope that Gerald Everett could be if he could stay on the field. Dalton Kincaid could be on an every down basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that pick. Ravens are up. They just signed Odell.
1 year though, so do
Yep.
we value that? Tough to say.
So I'm looking at Quentin. This for me is a little bit of a fall for Quentin Johnston.
He usually falls for me. I just know the league is split on him
Yep.
from everything they've said, and he could go as early as any team that falls in love with him, 12, maybe the Texans,
Mm-hmm.
maybe earlier. Although it's tough to find a spot. Maybe Tennessee.
This is the pick I would make is Tyreek Stevenson, actually, out of Miami. He's my cornerback 5. I think he's after the top 4. I think he's the guy for a press man system. And the Ravens need to at least be able to do that when they want to, even if they're going a little bit more zone heavy. They're just never going to get away from that physical mindset. And you already have Marlon Humphrey, so you don't need Tyreek Stevenson to be a 1. Even if this is early for some people, I think you could reach a little bit in a class that, yes, they have good corners, but Stevenson to me is actually a tier above your guys like Brents and Turner and Garrett Williams. So if I'm drafting off of my board, I'm going Tyreek Stevenson here to fill that huge corner need that they have.
Yeah, he's really good. Definitely like Tyreek Stevenson. Another guy who's had a decent offseason. Looked pretty impressive at the Senior Bowl. I didn't expect him to move so well, but he did. Minnesota. Corner, definitely a need for them. Receiver, definitely a need. Could even go front 7, too. I mean, I know you brought in Davenport, but I think that's a 1-year deal. So I don't really know if we'd value that too much. Nolan Smith could be intriguing. I think Murphy would probably be a better fit for them, though. I am going to go corner, though, despite all this waffling. I really do like the corners in this class. You could really sell me on a number of them. I'm going to sneak someone way up here. It's going to be DJ Turner. He's got great speed, obviously, but he's got good size. He plays really, really fast. Like maybe you're worried that he's undersized, but a lot of these corners are. He's I think sub 200, but I'm not really too concerned about it. He played really, really well at Michigan, and I think he's one of those guys that we don't really see in the first round often enough when you look at the toolbox. So I like the potential to develop him. And if I'm Minnesota, I so desperately need speed in my secondary.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they got almost a retirement home in terms of speed and bringing in Byron Murphy doesn't help. He's not fast. And I mean, Bynum can't run. I don't know. I hate to pick it apart too much, but we need speed. DJ Turner.
Yep. Especially, I mean, Booth is like,
I do
the fact that the injury popped up immediately. It's like, yikes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was listening to the Sam Monson and Steve on the PFF podcast today, and I think it was Steve brought up DJ Turner was second in their press coverage grade. So they can like sort through how the corners graded in different coverages. And he was second in press man, which is huge for that system. I compared him to Jonathan Jones, and you got Flores. So, it all lines up there for sure. I don't think it's crazy at all. Maybe try to, trade down if you can, but if not. Jags at 24. Brian Branch. If he's there, he fills like 2 needs for them, slot corner and safety. So wherever, you get through camp, wherever he kind of falls in, he's kind of like their only true need on that roster, and it's great value.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I heard a little nugget that Trent Baalke might really like Brian Branch as well. So,
all right,
could definitely see that. Man, I'll tell you, Brian Branch is the guy I want for the Giants.
Really?
Right now. Well, you look at, okay, do we really need another nickel? I think he could play safety. I think he takes the place of Julian Love really nicely,
Yeah.
and he's just really good. I want another really good player on that defense. There are not enough of them, but
Julian Love is like a really good worst case scenario for Brian Branch, by the way.
yeah, I think that's certainly fair. Like Julian Love, I don't know how he's still only like 24 years old. Seems kind of insane
Yeah.
because I feel like he's been in the league for a while now, and of course signed a second contract to go to Seattle. Um, I don't know how he's so young, but yeah, he's just fine. Made a few too many boneheaded plays, I would say,
Hmm.
but um, I don't know what would I do here if I'm the Giants. I've struggled so much here. I was gonna make a video, kind of. I don't know if it's gonna be like a quick clip, but I think the Giants' best case scenario is not taking a receiver and waiting until next year because you've signed so many, even if they're
Yeah.
just band aids. You have starting from the bottom, probably Jamison Crowder, Paris Campbell, Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard's back, Isaiah Hodgins. Yeah, you look at those and you go, who is actually good? That's a fair question, but they don't need to take a receiver this year. But when I look at the way the board has played out, a lot of the corners are gone. You still could take one. I think I'm going to end up taking a receiver because they've happened to fall. I think
Hmm.
edge could be in play. I think interior offensive line could be, but I'm
How do
actually
they,
going to go.
as the resident Giants fan, how did they feel about Aziz?
Aziz is someone that is good when he plays. He's unfortunately not reliable. He misses a lot of time due to injury. He's dinged up a lot. I like Aziz when he's playing. He's awesome. He's just not reliable enough in terms of actually being on the field, in my opinion. But I like him. But you also, I mean, as well as anybody, you can't even just have two edge rushers. You
True.
need way more than that. O'Shane Ximines was not impressive. Jihad Ward's a good locker room guy, but he's not really a true edge, and he's not going to do much. They really could and probably should take one high in this class. Nolan Smith at 25, I want to take, but with Jordan Addison on the board, I'm a big Jordan Addison guy, and I'm going to end up taking Jordan Addison. I don't think he's a slot receiver just by the size compared to all of the other Giants receivers about 6 foot. But I just think he is a very true separator. He's got good hands when he's not in contested catch situations. He does kind of pluck the football out of the air. So you hope he can develop as a contested catch receiver. But I don't really care when he separates as good as he does. And you can certainly draw the connection between if you like a Stephon Diggs ceiling comp to Brian Daboll in Buffalo. So I just think it makes too much sense. And Joe Shane, obviously.
Okay. So for the Cowboys, I love going Mazzy here. I think he feels like, because they really are trying to win now. And,
And in
after
a division that loves to run the football, you got to have a guy like him.
right. So yeah, and honestly, it's not even that big of a reach for me. I've got him as a 1-2 guy. So it just kind of lines up, even if Cowboys fans are tired of me making this pick.
Yeah, I think it's certainly fair. And then Buffalo. Buffalo's been another tough spot because you look at a bunch of different needs for a team that everyone seems to think is going to be a Super Bowl contender again. But then you look at the offensive line, you look at receiver, you look at their secondary, you look at edge for the future. I think I'm going to go ahead and go an even linebacker with Tremaine Edmonds, if I didn't mention him already.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to go more for BPA, and I'm going to go Nolan Smith here. You need more juice on the edge. Von Miller, great player. He's like 34 at this point. I think we got to go ahead and prepare for the future a little bit. Boogie Basham is in a prove it type year, and you can like Greg Rousseau fine, but Nolan Smith isn't your Greg Rousseau switch on and out with. He's with Von Miller. Like that's the profile
Yeah.
there. If you can have the absolute ceiling, I'm not saying Nolan Smith is Von Miller, but that's the speed rush freak twitched up athlete with a little bit of power to him as well.
Mm-hmm.
So even with linebacker, I know safety, I know interior offensive line, we can wait. Nolan Smith is here. We're going to take him.
All right. Yeah, they definitely need some juice there for sure. And Von Miller, by the way, 34 years old, coming off an ACL injury. So even counting on anything there is going to be a risk. So you got to pick for my Packers. So I'm going to pick for your Bengals at 28.
Just so what you're probably going to do is cut out the joke where I said it first, but let it be known, all right, that I put that on a T.
I love it. Are you ever going to change it?
I can at this point, right? And you know what? It's free comments if people want to make fun of me for being a very poor and short-sighted choice in name. You know what? They can. They can. It's all in good fun. The only thing is, I don't know if people think they're being like unique or clever. Like I've heard it so many times that it's not funny to me because I don't have a sense of humor. It's not funny to me because I've seen it a billion times.
Yeah. Yep, I hear you. So I actually have a pretty easy pick here for the Bengals at 28, and that's going to be my dude, DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. I
Ooh.
love this guy. I think he's pretty damn similar to what Mekhi Becton was coming out. I think he moves better than people give him credit for. I think even though he has like technical deficiencies, his feet like definitely need improvement. He's got such crazy reach and his arms are so freaking strong that even when he's out of position, like he's gonna slow you down. And you have Burrow back there who can, make the most out of some just averagely blocked plays as long as you give him a little bit of room to wiggle. So I think he can maul dudes in their new kind of like gap run system that they're going with. I love this fit. And him and Orlando Brown on opposite
Yeah,
sides is
two
just
right tackles.
Orlando Brown will find you for that.
Yeah, not anytime soon with that 40. When you were in 5'6". So. Saints at 29. This is another team I've struggled to draft for the entire cycle. I think they just pretty much should go best player available. I don't know
Yeah.
though.
I mean, Miles Murphy is kind of
Yeah,
a total
he's another
saint.
guy that too many questions. But if I'm
I
gonna make
agree.
excuses for Brian Brzee, you could make them for Miles Murphy and say, hey, just look at 2021. The guy's a
Mhm,
freak. But
mhm. I guess
I
this
don't know
is
if I
what we
want to
would
do
do.
that. Yeah, what would I do here? I would say, hey, we just paid a quarterback. I'm not going to say any other adjective in front of him, but a quarterback, a lot of money. We should probably get him some weapons. And I mean, you could make an argument for either Johnston or Zay Flowers here, in my opinion. I think I'm going to lean towards Johnston to get another big body in there. Michael Thomas is a bit of a question mark. And Johnson, you just hope develops. You get him at pick 29. He has maybe the highest upside of any receiver in the class due to the size speed profile. So why not? I'm really tempted to go defense here. I mean, a number of players are kind of staring at me in the mouth. Kalijah Cansey, I think, would be a good fit for them.
Yep.
But you can make an argument for so many. Just go tight end because it's the best player available. Just go with, edge because that's going to be a need. I don't know. You can make an argument for so many different players with that
You
spot.
really could. I think Quentin's fun, honestly. I think it's best player available at this point. You don't look at it as like a glaring need right now, but I really don't think Michael Thomas is like a long-term option for
Can't be.
them.
Can't be.
You get a guy in Quentin who's just a nasty guy after the catch. Who they don't really have. Like that's not Olave, that's not Thomas, that's not
Rashid Shaheed is he's good for a big play a game,
yeah.
but I'm not sure what you can
So
really expect out of him.
I think you can mix them in, maybe help keep Michael Thomas healthy a little bit, mixing their reps in a little bit. And then eventually maybe he can learn how to be a tough guy from Michael Thomas and turn into their true like X. So I didn't think about that, but it'd be a lot of fun. Eagles at 30. We went, what did we go for them? We went corner at the top? No, tackle. We took Paris Johnson.
Tackle Paris Johnson. Yeah.
Yep. So I think a lot of people have them going edge, and I don't know, man. I don't think they
They
need
don't
it.
need it
Yeah.
necessarily, but they definitely want it.
Yeah.
But this is not what they want, it's what you want. What would you do?
It's actually a really tough board for them.
I would probably reach on a running back here. Probably take Jahmyr Gibbs and forget about it.
That's definitely interesting. Yeah, because I mean, Zay Flowers could be interesting.
You know what no one has connected yet, but the Eagles to Darnell Washington would be menacing.
Oh
If you
man,
want to run the ball. I know they have Dallas Goddard, obviously, but they run 2 tight end sets. I think
yeah.
Jack Stoll was their tight end too for a lot of
Mhm.
last year.
That's a good suggestion.
I mean, these are things I've never even considered before, really. Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness. If you can guess their 4th tight end on the roster, I'd be shocked.
Well, they got Calcaterra,
They do. He's 3rd. Who's tight end 4?
tight end 4.
I'll give you a
Gi
hint that will give
Yeah,
it to
give
you
me a
if you
hint.
want it. He played at Buffalo,
University of Buffalo or
correct, and was not a tight end. Notably,
wow. Yeah, I'm not gonna guess that.
it is former Buffalo quarterback Tyree Jackson. He now plays tight end. I knew he made the tight end conversion, but you just forget about it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, let's do it. Let's take
That's how have I talked you into this? That's
I don't know. I'm
every time I do an Eagles mock draft, though, they say, "Oh, you just hate us. You gave us bad players." I'm like, I don't think that.
no, I think I would rather follow you up with Jahmyr Gibbs than do that, honestly. Forbes fits their system. Emmanuel Forbes fits their system. I think corners have started to fly off the board a little bit. God, that's just first round for him is just such a risk, though. This is really tough.
What would you do?
I'm gonna be a coward and just take Kalijah Cansey.
I mean, it'd be a pretty awesome pairing with Jordan Davis.
Yeah. Yep. Keep him in state. It's got to be a very specific fit for him. And yeah, with Jordan Davis there, you can get away with him. He can play a little early down edge for them if they needed him to, too.
This really could not have worked out much better for KC.
Oh,
Yeah, some really talented edge rushers available. Miles Murphy, Will McDonald, BJ Ojolari, Felix Anudike Uzama, maybe even Keon White if you wanted to do that. If
mhm.
you wanted to prepare for the future a bit, well, every tight end is available with the exception of Dalton Kincaid. And not only could you run 2 tight end sets, you could have future Travis Kelce, even though you're not going to get Travis Kelce. But Michael Mayer is here and is
Yep.
very good. And I mean, they have like 8 slot receivers. So we're going to get another tight end and we're going to go Michael Mayer. Don't need receivers when you can have tight ends in the KC offense.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting like big. Like their ability to run the ball there would be really scary. And he gives them an actual blocking tight end that Kelsey isn't.
But
So,
yeah, Mayer is a nice option. Like going from Travis Kelce to Michael Mayer, you
yeah.
really can't ask for a whole lot more. Like Travis Kelce's still a beast, but I mean, what's saying that that guy doesn't choose to just retire and do entertainment
Mhm.
after next year?
Yeah. At his age, you never know when he's going to fall off.
He's 33, going to turn 34 next season.
Yeah.
Like how long is he really going to want to play? I feel
Yep.
like that's a guy who could actually shock and retire alongside Jason Kelsey. Could be one of those guys that, maybe even retired before him, but Kelsey
Yeah.
announced his last season. So
Okay. I love it. All right, man. That does it. We got some interesting picks in there for sure. Always good to get, mix things up a little bit. That's why I like the what we would do. Just gets a little bit less chalky, and we can never predict the real draft anyway, so might as well get a little weird. Thank you for your time. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
no, this was a lot of fun. Just do it again. Might have you on the channel in the near future if you're not too busy.
All right.
And yeah, it got weird. What we might do to make it interesting, so it's not the exact same on my channel, if we can fit that in, I might do some type of like spin the wheel
Okay.
of craziness and get a little bit weird, a little bit funky.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I like mixing things up from just a standard mock. This was great too, but like, yeah, it can get a little get a little repetitive as the year goes on if you're doing like 20 mock drafts. So that'd be a blast.
It's my entire content.
All right. Take care. Bengal, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys for the next one. Peace out.